Liam Slater, Nathan Black. Thank you very much for joining us on Fit Dad's podcast and for having us at the absolutely amazing Pursuit Pro Wrestling.
It's awesome down, isn't it?
It's
really,
class.
really cool.
It's really good. Obviously, for the sake of our audience and anyone who's brand new to PPW, tell us a little bit about you guys, how you got started, whoever wants to go first.
Do you want to take the lead on it?
No, after you.
Cool. So PPW is born out of kind of an idea that Nathan had that I jumped on board with very early days as we were going through COVID. Basically, Nathan needed somewhere to start a pro wrestling dream. I was coming back into wrestling again and was kind of just floating here, there and everywhere, and it kind of spawned from that. There was 2 places that closed down. We kind of took the mantle of that, and then it's just grown into this that we've got here, which is a big, quite popular training facility for pro wrestling.
Bought a wrestling ring during COVID.
Yep.
Just because I decided I was going to wrestle. Once I've put my mind to something, it's pretty hard to undo that. So I bought the wrestling ring.
Was that like toilet paper, or was it like other stuff that was going cheap? Some stuff was going really cheap during COVID. Some stuff was like through the roof.
A lot of stuff, PPW, we've got some cool stuff here, and a lot of it came from living on Marketplace. I pride myself.
Yeah, he's a wizard on Marketplace. I don't know anybody that's got a better run of Marketplace successes.
They were Marketplaces, but a ton of stuff here you can see in Marketplace. Yeah, that was.
Yeah.
So
do you travel all over then, just picking stuff up?
The thing is, right, if you get something for 80%, the crash mats were from a lady who'd got like 10 kids, and they weren't the most well-behaved of children, and the school were like, your kids are jumping all over the place at school, so here's 10 industrial crash mats. And she only wanted 4, and they were worth like 600 quid each, and she put them on Marketplace for 30 quid. So I was like, cool, I'll drive to Peterborough to save £1,000. So, you just add it up, right? If it's going to cost me 50 quid in diesel and half a day, but I couldn't afford to spend £600 each on, the big school crash mats.
I think we can all relate to those kids as well.
Yeah, there you go. I probably was one of those kids. So
I definitely was.
Things like that, which just built off bargains. So the ring was, do you know what? I can't remember the exact price I paid for it, but I don't remember paying over the odds. The thing is, they're so rare and they don't come up very often that they're worth what you're willing to pay. So I probably would have paid a lot more if they'd have pushed it. But I bought it. I then set it up in a friend of mine, Josh, who I believe you know, his warehouse during COVID, and the insurance company found out and were like, get that rest. There was like forklifts driving around, and I just had this wrestling ring in the corner, and they were like, that can go. So I was like, well, I bought it now, so I better find somewhere. Met Liam, said, let's try and do this on a Tuesday evening, and boom, here we are.
How did you two meet? Was that
careers.
just through the wrestling community?
Yeah, pretty much. So we'd crossed paths at the school in Leeds that had closed down. Basically, during COVID, there was like that 8-week period where it was like, hey, things can like kind of reopen again. And it got to like autumn and they were like, no, forget that.
So Christmas inside.
Yeah. During the summer, we'd briefly met, and Nathan travelled down to, it was Devon that you went to, right?
Devon, yeah.
Travelled down with 2 guys. And one of the dudes was pretty much set up to be in the position that I was going to be in. And then like once you'd got the building set and ready, he was like, no, I can't do it. But Liam would probably want to jump into it. So
we basically didn't know each other apart from a handshake. That I know you guys more. We've only met today, and then I knew.
Before
Liam
we were
when
like,
started.
let's do a business.
Yeah,
and I looked at him and I went, he's a bit of a mug. Let's. It was more of a case. I was like, cool. I want to do something in pro wrestling. I want to rebuild like a Yorkshire area because it had really, really gone through the ringer.
Which is really one of the coolest things we've kind of done. To skip a bit, there is a Yorkshire scene now, and Liam did really early say it would be cool to have a Yorkshire scene. There was never a Yorkshire car. There was never a York. It just wasn't a thing. And like I said, we were talking about before we went live. Sheffield was. If there was a Premier League, we were the bottom of it in Sheffield in terms of where wrestling is, where the shows are, especially where the schools are. Sheffield's not where it happens. So we were like, well, let's just do it anyway.
Yeah,
sounds like a perfect place to set up a wrestling place.
Yeah, well, a lot of people would say no, it's not. A lot of people would be like, no, it's a dead town, it's a draw. There was a lot of people that wanted to do wrestling, but not a lot of people that were going to watch the wrestling shows. So it was this real weird mix. And we've got so many people that started at the Rotherham school that they're fantastic, are real good, and were never given the right coaching, leadership,
opportunity,
opportunity and encouragement to go, hey, you should be this. and it just ended up being a dead title. Like, again, I remember my basis is in West Yorkshire, so like being in Leeds and stuff like that, and us kind of laughing about Sheffield not being a good place to train, and being like, it's just not good stuff that comes out of it.
Ever. Like, it really, really was like, you just grimace when people are saying Sheffield wrestling.
And it's not even because now we've got so many people that were starting up at the same time that I was that are incredible wrestlers that just needed the right encouragement and training behind them.
Were you two big wrestling fans as kids? Was it something that you just grew up on, loved, and just knew, like, this is something I want to do forever?
Yeah. Do you want to start on this one, and I'll go from there?
I just can't wait to talk about Sting in 1997.
Let's jump straight to that.
Look, I could tell me and another close friend of ours down here, and a kid like us too, who spends a lot of time down here with us, who's another fantastic all over the world wrestler, was talking about the moment that he can specifically remember.
Is that Will Kroos?
Who's that?
It is. Come on, Will. Is it Will Kroos?
Look at this little cameo.
Hey, here he is.
TikTok's own.
Come on, Will.
The man, the myth, the legend.
Yeah, he is. The man with the mysterious mullet.
Yes.
You have to pick a side. You either got to come perch behind here or go over there.
You can come in, feel free.
Yeah, come and stand behind.
Come sit behind. Will they pick up on Will?
Yeah, it should do.
This guy's a fascinating story himself. So if you're all right with that,
Yeah, of course.
100%.
Absolutely fine. Yeah. Right, we're back in and we've got another guest on our hands.
Hello. We've moved.
It's very cosy on that sofa now.
That's why I took this chair. I said, I'm going
shout.
to sit here so I don't have to get squished into that.
Yeah. Why are your hands so tanned? You're so tanned, it's ridiculous. Sorry.
Do you tan?
Yeah, I fake tan because they won't let me on sunbed. So, because I'm so pale. Yeah.
So you've constantly got hands like my missus.
I have to, like I've been digging. Yeah. Bannintine gym won't let me in. David Bannintine, if you ever hear this, let me in.
It's not quite the revelation I expected.
Say you because you were too massive and you couldn't fit on.
No, I'm too pale. Yeah.
Well, there we go.
Guys, where were we? We were talking about. I've completely lost the track now.
I think it was where we started watching wrestling or like that. So
And now we're about to start talking about Sting, which I love, and then Will Kroos are in it.
Go for it.
Effectively, the quick version of it is, you'll probably remember if it's my era, you watch Cartoon Network, it ends at 9 o'clock, and then straight from there at 9 o'clock, WCW Nitro would come on, and that is, if that hadn't have happened, and I'd not been watching Cartoon Network and it not ended at 9, I'd not watched, that none of this would have been happening. So 97, finding out what wrestling is just from like Dexter's Lab went off, and like the Nitro intro, which is like the alleyways, all of that is pretty much the reason I reckon any of this is from my side of things happening. If I'd not watched that, I wouldn't got into wrestling and wouldn't be here. So yeah, there's definitely from there been a mega
those two
fan.
shows back to back was like perfect for you to get into. I wonder if that was like set up by the network to
Was
kind of
TNT
to get kids into
TNT. I just think it was that TV shows turned off, and they used to show. It would be Cartoon Network all through the day. Starts at like 7 a.m, ends at 9 o'clock, and then they put Nitro on for 2 hours, and then it was just like black and white movies till 6 a.m. in the morning. I don't know why, but TNT owned both of them, and yeah, if it hadn't been that time slot on that day. And I never used to understand it was Monday Nitro, but it was on a Friday to me, which made sense. And I just figured that it was, the things you don't question when you're a kid. But yeah, seeing Sting there, he was my favourite wrestler then and now, and that's definitely how I kind of got in.
still to this day your favourite of all time.
Depends on the era, because there's several times where Sting comes up on the TV and he's gone, "It's not my Sting. It's not my Sting." Which is your Sting? There's one. Unless it's not his era, then it's not the best.
Sometimes he could have had better face paint, or I didn't like his, a couple of things he did wrong. But overall, the greatest. But I'm like 97, 98. Liam's a little bit younger, so Liam's got his own. People got different time periods. It's really weird. You can usually tell from an age.
Who's your favourite,
you can guess.
So I've got a pretty eclectic taste within professional wrestling. So my probably favourite of all time is Bryan Danielson. There's Alex Shelley, who's now part of WWE, is Motor City Machine Guns. And then there's a Bradford wrestler called Jim Breaks, who used to wrestle in like World of Sport, like 80s in England. the person that I got into was The Rock. So like I'm super late 99, 2000s are like my first memories of it. We had Sky, it was on Sky One. And yeah, it was just like something that I just ended up watching.
Saturday morning?
Yeah, Saturday morning, Sky One, and it'd have like SmackDown, so I'm a big SmackDown guy rather than a Raw guy. Yeah. And then they'd often play like Velocity and stuff like that, or Metal, or Jacked, or like these like C shows that the WWE had, which was like the cruiserweights and people that weren't signed and stuff like that, and just enhancement talents. And that's where I really fell in love with like professional wrestling, and that's probably like 2001, 2002, where I'm like 8, 9, and like just watching like these like wild like matches that didn't have any consequence to them. It wasn't like the main stories, but it was way more intriguing to me as a fan. And like there was a wrestling channel called there was a channel called The Wrestling Channel that was like a free Sky program. It was a free Sky channel. 427 was like the code for it.
Are you all right? What are you doing?
Oh, fuck, sorry.
I guess my story's not.
I've been trying to hold it in for ages.
What is wrong with you? What are you questioning?
Sorry.
Just cough, mate. It's all good. Let it all out.
And on there was a lot of World of Sport stuff and like some Ring of Honor stuff and some early TNA stuff. And there's just this wild world of professional wrestling like opened up, and I was like, wow, this is really, really cool. I watched a documentary called Beyond the Mat, which is like a real like behind. It's a fantastic one. But I
got it on VHS up there. There it is. It's actually in shot. There it is. Boom.
It's mine. Like I watched it when I was like 9.
Didn't your grandma or someone give it you and thinking it was wrestling?
Yeah, my nan was like, "Oh, this is a wrestling documentary. Here it is for Christmas." When I was 9, and like, if you don't know, like Beyond the Mat, it's like a real like expose, like behind the scenes. Yeah, Jake Roberts is on there, and he's talking about like his crack addiction, and like he's in Nebraska, and he's sat there, and he's like, "I could be mayor of this town tomorrow."
Yeah,
and like, he's off his head, and there's this real grim story in it about his dad and his daughter and all this sort of stuff. And then there's like Mick Foley getting knocked out by The Rock at like Rumble 99, and like his wife like running off in tears, and like he calls the director and he's like, "Hey, it's Cactus Jack." And there's all these bits that are ingrained in my head.
Grandma.
Yeah, absolutely. Because
Liam likes wrestling.
Yeah, and I genuinely think if it pulled back the magic. Like people talk about like when they realized that wrestling like wasn't real and stuff like that. I don't think I ever had that thought in my head, because from such an early age I watched this like expose of like this isn't real, like and it never bothered me. It was like I just really like professional wrestling, whereas a lot of people will watch it until they're like, I don't know, like 11, 12, 13, and someone goes, "It's not real," or something happens and they go, "This isn't real," and the magic gets broken, they don't follow into it. Yeah, I get it.
I wish I'd known earlier on that it wasn't real, because you would have been like, and the moment you realise it's not real, you keep on watching it and you like analyse it as a kid. I thought it was not all there. He's not really punching him there. And then there's a passion dies for it a little bit, and that's when I jumped to like UFC and some more harder stuff, because I want it to be real. Yeah. But I think, you're right. I wish I'd known earlier.
Yeah. Nobody questions movies. Like nobody goes like, "Well, a movie's not real." Yeah, of course a movie's not real. Like Spider-Man's not a real person. Sorry, kid like us too. Like he's not a real person. But we don't question that. We still get enjoyment out of it.
Yeah.
But because wrestling sits on this real weird realm of, is it real? Is it not real? Feels real. Looks real. I'm seeing them do it in the ring. Like there's been a physical person picked up and slammed down. Like there's no camera cut into this.
You can't fake that. Do you know what I mean? There's the injuries and the painkillers, and I'm sure we'll get into all that kind of stuff. But like that's no joke. Like, these guys are like battering their bodies for the sake of entertainment.
I think the bit to really pull it back, probably when you're a kid, is just realising they don't actually hate each other. When you realise that they're actually friends, that's the bit that ruins the magic.
Maybe that's
I think that's what it is.
Yeah, they're not actually brothers.
Yeah, it's that thing.
And then you'd be like, damn. And I think
Foley's sock ain't actually real.
Yeah. CGI. When that gets pulled back and people feel like they've been taken a fool of, or they're dumb. People don't like feeling dumb. Yeah. So people go like, "Well, I knew it wasn't real, and I'm not watching it anymore because it's fake." Yeah. Like, it's cool. Like, just say you enjoyed it, but it's hard for people.
Needs to do more of that to promote like this isn't real. It's entertainment. Like we're doing it for a show.
I think that's where we are now. Like, there's so much of WWE product that is them pulling back the curtain of like what's happening. Yeah, and it's the hottest that it's been in years. And I think now that they've got past that point of being like, oh, actually, if we can talk quite openly and like they've got closing credits on the shows now.
like produced by Paul Levesque. Like,
Really pulling back.
yeah, it really pulls back that this is a produced TV show, but it will be a benefit because then people go, and they're the credits, and then this isn't real, but I can still enjoy it. It makes it more of a TV product, even though it's always been a TV product.
More palatable, for sure.
Yeah.
Love that. Will, what about yourself? How did you first get into...
2005 or 6.
Were you that late? Yeah, I think
Yeah, I was really late. No, 2005, 2006, and it was the Spirit Squad and DX. That was my... I think it was 2005.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
you're in the right time period there.
Are you
on SmackDown on
TNA?
Sky.
Okay.
No, yeah, Sky Sports. I was fortunate my parents had Sky Sports, and yeah, it hooked me in. I was like, well, look at these cool guys bullying these gymnastic guys. yeah.
You Triple H guy? I don't know what.
Yeah, I am a big Triple H guy. Because those two were the first two people I really knew. And then later on, I started watching like Japanese wrestling and stuff, and well, that was when I started actually wrestling. Is when I stumbled across Japanese wrestling. But yeah,
What brought you here to this studio?
I just training, I guess.
You knew Liam.
Yeah, like I knew Liam. I know Kid Like Us too. So I knew like the main people here before I came, but it was a weird. I don't know how to describe it. Like,
I think it probably took you about a year to really
I'm,
come down.
I'm pretty local.
More than
I'm
a
only
year. It's way over a year.
probably 35 minutes away.
Yeah.
So in terms of like getting to a school, that's pretty local for.
You're in a bit of a different clique of friends, different
Yes.
clique of wrestlers.
Yeah.
We also, even a year and a half ago, for any perceived growth of the brand or how big we are followers, we were nowhere near that even when Will came in. So it's what we are now in this new place. We weren't really then. We were probably just starting to break through that. So now we're a lot more accessible to a lot more people, but we still were we weren't just Sheffield, we were quite a Yorkshire-y kind of thing only, whereas we very quickly became quite UK and then even quite, across Europe and all the rest of it. So, but back then when you started coming in, September of 23, it was a bit different.
Yeah, it's probably. I've only really been coming a year and a half.
Yeah.
Really.
Fascinating things you said to me was around that. It was around, whoa.
There it is, Axel.
We've got our TikTok,
Technician.
social media,
Yeah,
and like
Axel the clown behind the
a few
lens.
technical issues. Yeah, you mentioned that you don't want to keep it Sheffield based. You don't want to keep it UK based. You want to keep it so that, anyone from across the world is into wrestling can find you guys. And I think you've done an amazing thing with that. It works really well. Even online, like you wouldn't know it was literally 2 minutes drive from my house.
Which is a good thing, but it's also a bad thing because, we'll have delivery drivers that need to drop something off next door and come here to see if we can hold it overnight, whatever. And you just see the process of like, and what are you lot doing in here then? And they'll say, I've always loved wrestling. I didn't know you were so close. So that's the downside of them maybe not knowing we're here, but the good side of it, and it's one of the first things that me and Liam talked about when we were discussing this, back in the depths of COVID, was like, we didn't want to have, I think a lot of British wrestlers and wrestling gyms and wrestling places will attach themselves to either the English flag or the Union Jack, and I just thought that we wanted to feel like we could be anywhere at any time doing anything, which does go for and against us. But yeah, it was like we want to make sure we could be anywhere. So a lot of people, especially when we're doing the TikToks, always they'll go, "Where are you?" and we will go Sheffield,
England.
and they will always go Sheffield, Alabama.
Yeah, yeah. People are like, "Oh, Sheffield." Like, I remember getting a message being like Sheffield, and they're like, "No, like."
Quite a few.
Yeah,
we're in Sheffield.
So have you got a big US following then?
We've got
online?
a following all over the world.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. And it's funny, like, not to stereotype, but you see the same phrases or the same way that people word stuff from different continents. And I could look at somebody's profile now and look at the message that they've sent me and say, well, they're from America, or they're from Africa, or they're from, like, the Middle East. Like,
We get a lot. Nigeria, a lot from Pakistan, a lot from India.
and a lot of people that are like, I want to be a wrestler. Great. And like, and then you would pay me No.
You'll give me a visa?
Yeah, I had a conversation with somebody that went on and on. My wife had to block him. And I felt bad about it because he wants to be a pro wrestler. But he was like, you can sort me out a visa. I cannot sort you out a visa. I can't do that. That's not the facility that we are. That's not what we do. But you can sort me out of it. No, I can't. If you come over to the UK, then you can absolutely train.
Yeah.
And bless him for being persistent. Yeah.
They don't have.
But this is the thing. There was a company in his country that were doing pro wrestling. I Googled it and I searched it and I was like, hey, man, they're here. Yeah, but could you get me a... No.
He just wants to be on a boat and over there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and like we get people that are like US based that are like, where are you? Where are y'all? Y'all's are real consistent. If I see y'all, I'm like, there's no... Yeah, you're an American.
Yeah.
We're in Sheffield, UK. Have you got a place in Pensacola, Florida? That's where you've just been. That's why it's in my head. No. Yeah. No, we don't. But again, it's this weird position that we built ourselves into that I think people think that we're like a McDonald's and we're not.
That's testament to how well you've put yourselves out there and made yourself so global.
Me and Liam sometimes talk about this where, someone will come to us and Liam will go, oh, we're miles away, but there's a school close or whatever. And I explain to people sometimes that I think it's that they want to come to what they've seen online, that it is this place. And it's not that they necessarily want to just learn to wrestle. I think people just want to come and be a part of the thing that we're doing. And people are prepared to travel for that. And even though they have got somewhere closer, we have got people that will travel a long way to come down to be a part of kind of what we
Testament to you guys. And I suppose one of my key questions were going to be, where's probably the coolest place wrestling's taken you guys? I know you mentioned a little bit of a name drop there for you've just been, Will.
Yeah, Will, you've just been over in America.
Yeah, I've just been in the States. Yeah, I did Florida and Alabama. So
and you're going to Japan in what?
I'm going to Japan in the end of April.
Wow. The kid in you must be thinking, fucking hell, I'm doing this. You know what I mean?
I'm going for 3 months there as well. So it's not just like a little vacation, staycation.
What's the standard like over there? Do you find that it's intense? Is it different over here?
I'd probably say they see it more as a sport over there. Even though it's still predetermined, it's still very much
a lot more kayfabe.
And a lot more like respect. With the fans are like a lot more respectful. Not that fans aren't respectful here, but it's just very much like there's not just random noises in the crowd. That like if they're watching, and then if they clap, it's like a little golf clap kind of thing.
Yeah, the crowds are totally.
It's very it's just a lot more respectful, I guess. But I'm very excited because that's originally when I first started training and I stumbled across Japanese wrestling, that's really what set my passion off. So I'm very excited.
That's amazing. Whereabouts in Japan are you doing that?
So I'll be staying in Tokyo. I can't say because it's not been announced yet. So I can't say where, but it's like Tokyo, and then they tour up and down.
Are you playing the same character over there, or do you have different?
It'll be me. Yeah, it'll be me. Yeah,
awesome. That's really cool.
Yeah, I think that's really the cool thing about professional wrestling is that there is such an ownership over characters, and you might change your character or whatnot, but like us three as wrestlers, like our product is us. So his product of Will Kroos is the reason why he's going to Japan. Like they want Will Kroos. He got booked in America because they were like, we want the Will Kroos that we're seeing in the reels. Nobody wants Nathan Black, but that's don't worry about that. But to give Nathan his credit, people want the comedian Nathan Black on the shows that's a big loud mouth and shouts off at people and then gets egg in his face. Like that's what they want. Whereas an actor plays a role and then it becomes a different role, whereas we are the roles.
Right. You and your character in the industry are one another, basically. Yeah, absolutely. Cool.
I think Rotherham for you, right? That's probably your length that you went to.
I love the ribbon that's taking place now.
We did go to Mexico, which was pretty wild.
Put the masks on, the lace-up masks.
No, I did not. I went, but that was what worked there is everyone was masked and I wasn't. So then you immediately stand out more. So that was a long way. We went there for 3 days.
That start the masks in Mexico because it was Rey Mysterio, wasn't it, in the WWE that had that on?
I mean, Lucha Libre has got a long history of. I say a long history. It probably kicks in like the 1940s. Pro wrestling's like a relatively like new thing in the history of everything. It kind of kicks in like the 1900s as the shoot fighting that happens, and then like an actual like grappling, similar to a UFC, right? And then they start going, well, hang on a minute. If I just kind of get you here and you tap out, then we can do this again next week, and then we can make more money from it. And then it starts to go from there, and people build up characters, similar to how a UFC potentially starts to move. So then that's how that begins, and that's very much like an American product. So you get the spill that goes down to Mexico, obviously, because there's the border that sits there. But then Mexico has a big tradition of like the Day of the Dead and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. And actually, I believe it was a bit more of like a marketing thing of one of the guys went, well, if I just put a mask on, then I can keep myself separate. And it kind of built this culture out of it. And to kind of touch on that, like Will saying about how Japan moves and the style of wrestling in Japan, that again comes from their history of martial arts. So then there's this respect that's built in of sport, and then pro wrestling goes over to Japan, and it's rebuilding out of a world war. So Japan's on the losing side of the world war. So to build a community back up again, what they do is they have valiant Japanese. Are you both coughing now?
No, it's not me.
Sorry.
You have valiant Japanese heroes taking down the big American baddies, who are seen as the bad guys. And then that's how a culture of wrestling develops in Japan. For England, we have like a Lord Mount Ever's rules that used to be there, which was basically a law that went through the House of Lords of being like, these are the official rules for pro wrestling.
So wow, so there's actual laws
and that
in the House of Commons now?
It probably passed, and it's probably... But that's how it kicks in, or at least that's the story that's in and around it.
What was that law called? It was the...
Lord Mount Ever's rules.
Lord Mount Ever's rules.
Yeah. And it's just a rule set that they have. But again, that informs how the pro wrestling moves and stuff like that. So to kind of answer your question, Rey Mysterio is just a big export of Mexican wrestling, but Lucha Libre has a huge history of names and stuff like that.
I think we were talking about, obviously, before the Netflix, before the show, Netflix is obviously big kind of money now for the industry, and big for kind of pushing wrestling on. And we all talked about how we've seen the recent documentary about WWE, and it's amazing to see how over the years they did exactly the same in the US. They played on like political situations, and they manipulated characters. They had like some big Iranian bloke when there was tensions between US and Iran.
Hogan and Slaughter was a huge one.
Yeah. And it was quite like, I mean, if that stuff came out now, it'd probably be a bit more close to the edge. I think even back then it was close to the edge. Now it'd be like...
If you want to understand what's happening within culture, look at professional wrestling, because professional wrestling is the reaction of the audiences. So... especially like in the 80s where like there is a boom of like capitalism that happens within America, that happens within pro wrestling. As you go into the 90s and it becomes car crash TV, and you go into like a post-capitalist, right? You go into like a bit of a post-capitalist society where like America is like the top country in the world and it's untouchable. The WWF is the top thing that's in and around. Like I was saying earlier, like the Japanese culture is starting from Japanese heroes that are taking on the American villains. For Mexico, the tradition of like their festivals and stuff like that all comes through Lucha Libre. And if you look at especially American pro wrestling and you hold it up as a mirror to what happens, you go post 9/11 and then pro wrestling dies. In essence, it's still there, but it definitely takes a backseat because the car crash stuff that was happening now, it almost becomes a bit, we can't do that. And America changes and pro wrestling changes in with that. We're now in this world of like complete globalization. And what's the WWE doing? They're going to Mexico and they're going to Canada and they've been in France and they've been here and they're going back to Japan and all these sort of bits and pieces because it's a global entity, and that's what the world is. It's a global entity now. So it's very much a reflection on society.
Also there's the Logan Paul in terms of like the internet and like stuff that WWE wouldn't have ever done or actively were against 5 to 10 years ago. Guys like Logan Paul, all that kind of stuff. And now because the culture of internet thing is like, he's the top guy there. So again, I think they do a good job listening.
WWE's been very good at like bringing in characters that are going to propel their business.
Yeah, absolutely.
A big feature on the Netflix documentary was Donald Trump, because he was just a big figure in the US. He was like quite a character, outspoken, probably a little bit hated as well. And they thought, we can play on this, we can bring him in. He's not going to throw any punches, he's not going to do any grappling.
Well, he says
but he's
a babyface.
he said he was hated. He wasn't. He was a babyface.
He was a babyface in the angle he did.
He was the good guy. Vince McMahon was the bad guy. He was doing the Apprentice stuff, and they were like, yeah, cool, we'll bring him in. And I actually think that a lot of Donald Trump's election campaigns and the way that he acts and all that sort of stuff is born out of his time within the WWE.
Yeah, 100%. I thought he was the bad guy.
No,
he's
the baby
he was the good guy.
He does get stunned at the end, which is what I think a lot of people maybe remember.
Yeah.
Because obviously Stone Cold's the ultimate good guy, but he was the babyface. I'm sure was it printed money, or did he actually give away money?
I think he actually Lashley on it.
Yeah, it's him and Lashley. I think he dropped money from the sky, and then I think Vince dropped money, the fake money with his face on, or whatever it was, in retirement, something like that. But yeah, there was loads of babyface stuff he was doing at the time to get over.
Yeah. But amazing from that industry. And I think the one thing you get from that documentary is how good wrestling is at like playing on society, characters, trends. Now with obviously, Logan Paul, social media, just pulling in people who are like
Travis Scott in the biggest angle of
ever.
Yeah. It's because it's
surreal.
It's live. It's happening. Like, it happens in front of your eyes. Like, you tune in on a Monday and it's live, and they react to things. And then also, they're reacting to what the audience is giving them. It's not like EastEnders, where like it's filmed 4 months in advance and the audience are just reacting to it.
It's force-fed.
Yeah, it's happening now. And yes, they have stories, but then the story changes because the audience change. And like the era that you're in defines the wrestling that you have, and what has worked now doesn't work, and what is old then becomes new again. And there's all these cycles and stuff that, because it's a live entertainment, we're reacting to people and they're reacting to us.
I feel like you guys have done an amazing job so far just to give context to everyone about, I suppose, the behind the scenes of wrestling as well. Like, is there anything you wish the audience knew more about pro wrestling? Any misconceptions that you want to put to bed and think, no, this is what it is, this is what we see it becoming, and maybe this is what we want it to be?
I'd like to see it being taken more. Something that we struggle with is that nobody will classify pro wrestling. Is it an art form? Is it a sport? I think there's a line between both of them. That's why they coined the term sports entertainment, because that's what it is.
Well, it's the third as well, because it can be for cage fighting. So it becomes, is it art? Is it sport? Is it fighting? Is it fighting? No, whether you're trying to get insured, whether you're trying to get a license to sell, whatever it is, if you're putting or even with, starting the business with the council. Cool. Well, what are you? We don't really exist. Yeah. There's a crossover of circles.
Trying to get insured is a nightmare.
Yeah, and it's not that, because we go, well, we're pro wrestling, and they go, but that doesn't exist in the categories that we've got. Yeah, we'll make a new category then. Yeah. Put a new category.
I mean, how long's wrestling been around? Surely they should have some kind of contingency.
Again, you don't want to go down this whole rabbit hole because it's a 10-hour chat in itself, but because there's no governing body, which is a huge thing, it doesn't belong anywhere. So equity kind of cover wrestling a bit.
Don't they? Yeah.
But like I said, what is it? Is it a theatrical show? Is it cage fighting? Is it performance art? It's kind of all of them. And the problem is nobody's taken responsibility for it. And so it doesn't, we don't know where we are in terms of, I'd like to have more of a thing of going into schools. I've got a lot of friends in different disciplines, for breakdancing and football. They go into schools and they teach kids. But in order to get to that point, they go, well, what is it you do? And you get trapped because they don't know then, what are we marketing this as to parents? You get stuck, and it's becomes really difficult.
Yeah, I bet.
And that's why sports entertainment, Liam, became a word. Because is it sports? Is it entertainment? And they kind of made a new word. I still don't think it's enough, but that's where that term came from.
Yeah, and like at heart, it's a carnival attraction.
Yeah,
it is carny. Like it is built on like deception, right?
It's built off the back of even in America, it was in car parks. You to set a ring up, and then that grew into
even before that.
It's a
circus thing.
It used to be a wrestling bear.
It's like a circusy. It goes back 100 years.
And what they would do is they would go. So Blackpool. So there's a guy called William Regal who's like one of the biggest British exports.
You can wear those purple tights there.
Yeah, up there. So at Blackpool Pleasure Beach, they used to have a wrestling show on, and what they would do is be like, go on then, challenge us for a £5, come down, pay your money and see if you can beat one of the wrestlers. And they were shooters, so they'd bend people up and around and stuff like that, and then there'd be 2 wrestlers that would go on afterwards and they would put on a show. But yeah, it's carnival based. It's come and beat this person.
Yeah.
Well,
you do think about the
beat
guy with a big handle mustache and he's grippling someone or he's going in with a bear. Yeah. It was circus, you're right.
Yeah, it's absolute circus. And there's a lot of terms that we use, like a kayfabe and all that sort of stuff, that are, at heart, carnival terms that have just been adopted. So like face and heel and all that sort of stuff, and all these words that don't really mean stuff, but they do mean stuff, that are now not just in a lexicon of like regular wrestling, but within the world. Like, people will refer to Donald Trump as a heel. Like, he's the president of the United States and we're using wrestling terms to talk about him. But
I mean, there's other terms as well, I guess. But,
but from a wrestling point of view.
Talking about like the injuries, we touched on it before, and the intensity of it, like, how bad does it get some weeks for you guys when you've got kind of like training and you've got shows, and are there weeks where you feel really beat up, or are you quite good at balancing the recovery side of it?
Go on, Will.
It's the travel for me. What does it for me? Just being, like, especially coming back from America, obviously it's not the same for everyone, but coming back from America, and the day I came back, I flew from Orlando to JFK and then overnight to Heathrow, and then I landed at 10:30 in the morning and then wrestled that day. But being on a flight in economy, sat like this, next to a poor old lady, bless her, and I'm there like this, can't move, and I'm on the aisle, and then every time the trolley comes past, I get a shoulder, and and then you stiffen up, and that's the worst thing. You go and wrestle, and like 9 times out of 10, I'll feel all right, but then it's the drive home is what gets you, like
do you have a protocol when you get there, like a stretchy and
really
limbering
terrible
up
for looking after myself, but like I'm seeing a chiropractor on Thursday for the first time in years,
right?
But I get a sports physio as well, like every 3 weeks.
As coaches ourselves, like, we
and I don't smoke either, so just ill.
We can't recommend, like, just literally as soon as you land, just some kind of stretch and mobility thing that you do that will just mean that as soon as you step onto that ring, you feel looser, you feel like everything's smoother. So
from the background, like, I've been a PT as well, and like, again, a big part of like my stuff was like, let's make sure like you're mobile, we're able to move. Like, if you've been sat down all day, let's get you moving, let's get you flexible, etc., etc. So I'm completely behind all that. Like, somebody that
I'm trying to say, you can lead a horse to water, you can't make it drink.
And especially when it comes to pro wrestling, where like, hey, we turn up and then we've got to talk about the match, and we've got the match. So for an example, I was in a match last Sunday, and it was a tag match, and we were putting it all together, and then suddenly it was like, right, and we're on, and I was like, cool, I did 10 squats, and I was like, cool, I'll see you out there.
Really? Did you not stretch?
No, I don't stretch it. I don't stretch at all.
Before shows?
Before shows.
Stop it.
Honestly, like, and part of it comes into like the body being calloused up, and like, I know how my body moves and stuff like that, but I agree, would I be better stretching? Yeah, probably. Yeah. But where does the time come into it? Again, when we're at North, another company that was before that, I'm in positions where I'm also helping other people put matches together. So I'm talking to them, and then I'm putting my match together. And again, it was like, cool, we're on. It's like, okay, cool. And then we went out first. So the 30 seconds that I might have had to like do a little bit of stretching suddenly changed around. Like, cool, I'm out there, see you there.
Yeah.
And then we go.
Yeah.
For me, I'm not the best stretcher ever, but I absolutely will, because on night one, what we trained for, it was 10 months we trained for. What are you laughing for? What's wrong with you? I'm not laughing. So 30, I was 30, I must have been 30, was I 31, 32, whatever, I was right around there. First ever wrestling match. Now, the first thing I did wrong is I've been performing for 15 years, and I don't stretch if I'm going to go and do comedy or present or anything like that. So it's not in my nature to stretch before I walk out onto stage or onto camera or anything. And it was my debut match, and not even so much nervous. I'm not an overly nervous performer. Just thinking about the match, and I didn't stretch at all. And he's getting ready to laugh. 9 seconds into my debut, I snapped my shoulder in half. No. The very, very first bump I ever took. Shut up, Axel the Clown. The first bump I ever took, I snapped my shoulder clean off the bone, and you can see it. Yeah.
How did that happen? Talk us through that.
took a drop kick. He took a drop kick where the dude just jumps up, feet onto him. It's not an hard. Took a back bump.
Right.
Landed, popped his shoulder out, didn't he?
Oh, so it was the way you landed after you got kicked.
He wasn't a bad bump. I can only think I had not warmed up. And again, talking about the callus now, having been wrestling full time, as in weekend after weekend for years now. But then, not been in that scenario, and so I absolutely make sure I don't stretch enough in the week, as I should. Probably none of us do, but at 35 now, try and work as smart as I can, but I do try and force myself to stretch because that sucked.
It takes that.
I need to be careful.
100%. And we covered this briefly before we started recording, but did you get into it, Nathan, at 31? I think we said Liam was in his teens. Will, what about yourself?
I was 20 when I started.
21, cool. If this place existed when you guys were 10 years old, how life-changing, groundbreaking would that be?
Do you know what? I don't know. Because it's about finding it more than anything else, which again is where stuff like governing bodies and being out there and all that sort of stuff becomes vital. Wrestling schools have existed so when I was coming up and through, I remember being like, well, it only exists in America, so I'll have to go to America. And then I went to Butlins when I was like 13, and they had wrestling at Butlins. And then on the back of the program, they had a flyer that said, we've got a school that's in Liverpool. And I was like, okay, cool. Well, when I'm 18, I'll go to Liverpool and I'll train to do pro wrestling. And then there was another magazine called Fighting Spirit that I was reading when I was in college. And there was an advertisement in there, and there was a place in Wakefield. And I was like, cool, I'll go and do that. So yeah, there were places not like this. I don't think there's been really anything like this, but there were definitely schools that existed. They've existed for years and years and years. It's just finding them.
Yeah.
It's finding them. And also, like,
I think it's a great idea to get out in schools and giving talks and
it's really difficult. It's not.
Is it?
Because there's no piece of paper you can give that said, look, they've approved us. Whether it's,
to be a PT, to be a PT, you've got to have a qualification, right? Now, we would argue that there's some people that probably shouldn't have the qualification, but there's at least a qualification there. There's at least
you go to a gym and you put the piece of paper.
Yeah, there's a step that a JD gyms would go, well, you've not got this piece of paper, so you can't PT in our gym. And that obviously now becomes harder with an online space where anybody that's got a bit of muscle on them goes, I'll write you up a plan and I'll do you a plan. Which I'm sure
we've gone into detail about this, don't we? Yeah, we won't touch that again.
It's kind of where we are, where like anybody can buy a ring and put a show on if they want.
Would you guys like to kind of maybe be part of that? If there was like you mentioned, obviously this big gym in Norwich, if they approach you guys and a few other gyms said, look, we're going to put together a governing body and we want to have accreditation so people can have these hotspots where kids and adults can go and train.
Look, it's been tried.
I don't personally.
You wouldn't want that?
I've actually gone. You go first, and I'll tell them.
It's not that he doesn't massively want to, and again, you'll go into your own story about how you've experienced it. It's that it needs to be external. This is the difficult bit.
It needs to be external.
It needs to be an external body that goes, we're doing this, either jump on board or don't jump on board. I've got a whole theory about how it'd work. Would I like to see it? Yes. Would I like to, be an influence into it? Yes. But then you get an ego and a bias that comes into it. Well, they're only doing that so they can be... And it's not that. We want wrestling to be better. But if your top company in America doesn't have good employment laws and shit like that, then why would that ever trickle down and through? So it becomes harder that way, in the same way that, again, we come to PT qualifications. Wouldn't it be great if all the PT qualifications were the same? And kind of not. And you can do an online course, or you can go and do... I did a 6-week in-person course. It was fantastic. I wouldn't have got the same learning if I'd have done an online course, but people can do an online course and then suddenly they're a PT, right?
Yeah.
So it needs to be an external body, because when you go internal, it then becomes, well, you're only doing this for the benefit of yourself. It's a self-service rather than it being, no, actually we're doing this for the benefit of everybody else. But I suppose, Nathan, if you want to talk about your experience of governing bodies.
Really odd. So I was in skateboarding for years and years and years, and I watched a governing body be created by people that I know, and it's been 10 years now. And it's just about starting to be respected. It wouldn't be in the Olympics. It wouldn't be, skateboarding wouldn't be as accessible as it is. I used to get detention for going to school with a skateboard, and now they teach it in PE. The problem is, I know the guy that invented the governing body, and he became the most hated man in all skateboarding, because you then have to go around and tell people, well, you can't do that anymore because you refuse to take part in our rules that we've created. So we would then create a governing body, and then we would go around the places and shut them down and say, you will do what they've been around for years, and so you've got to do it our way and have these checks and these, that and the other. And I want to be a wrestler. This is kind of accidental. Liam wants to be a coach. I want to be a wrestler. Obviously, Liam's a wrestler as well, but Liam wanted to teach. I wanted to wrestle. This whole businessman thing and, what we do and these other hats that we wear are cool, but they were accidental. I want to perform first and foremost. It's not my battle. I'm also not prepared for, really, quite frankly, for the heat that'll come with it, because you are going to... And if you look at, once upon a time, football will have been unregulated, and there will have been someone that started FIFA and pissed everybody off and went, you're not a football club anymore because we say so. Now that's all been forgotten about. And we're just getting there.
Good job,
right? And then people are, you have that debate and stuff like that, and again, then it's a thankless task, right?
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
It really is a thankless task. So
people hate the FA, right? They're like, these rules, and they've got to do this and this and this. Well, yeah, but surely it's better to have that rule with a referee that's got first aid training than just the dad that's on the side of the pitch. And my dad once got sent off. I played 11-a-side football when I was a kid, and he once got sent off because he would give him mouth to referee. So he's got my brother, who was 6 at the time, on his shoulders, and he's and the referee's like, go over there and shut up. So he was just stood
we all knew that down the sideline. Yeah.
He wasn't a regular one, wasn't John, but on this day he was particularly.
You need those rules, right? But I'm not, and we do need them. But it is not what we're trying to be, which is a brand and an entertainment product. It is not a good idea for us to then be in charge and be like, and we now rule. That is. And everybody always asks that when we talk about there needs to be a governing body, that it kind of feels like it shouldn't be us. Then there's a board of directors that's all, and I've seen it happen. And what it did to skateboarding is crazy to think back on what happened. But
it was good in the long run for skateboarding, you think?
I would say so. I'm sure.
It was cool when I was in it. Do you know what I mean? It was this underground thing that you did, and it was
You're 35, right?
Yeah.
I'm 34, so we were probably into it at the same time. I was into skateboarding as a kid, and it was grungy. It was part of the mosh scene, part of the emo scene.
It wouldn't have been cool if it was taught in PE. It was cool that we did this thing, and then we would rebel and break into schools and break into skate spots that we shouldn't have been in, and all the rest of it. And so,
if the sir had come in on his skateboard is the lesson, you'd be like, yeah, I'm not doing that.
That's what I'm saying. So then you've got to be careful, because wrestling, what we do down here is quite cool, because we're kind of a secret little members club. Yeah, I don't know about cult, but yeah, it's not a cult. We are not a cult. Okay,
that's the opening headline right there.
We are not a cult.
But, and I think that there is a line that when it becomes, I guess it's to be careful maybe what you wish for scenario. And it's not our hill to die on. So
would you not be up for working with so you're not the hated people in the industry kind of setting all the rules?
People get jealous when they're bitter.
And again, it's we
have it enough.
Yeah, for sure. And we're happy to work with people, and we work with people. There's a company over in Manchester that we've got good links with, and we're happy to work with people. That's never a problem. And we'll share information and all that sort of stuff. For how we stay safe and his code of conducts and all that sort of stuff. Fuck yeah, let's do all that. But to then make it an official body, it needs more. And it's similar, we're in this area, and it's I'd like a Sheffield-based wrestling company, and sometimes they pop up and sometimes they go. And I go, man, if I could get my hands on... And then I go, I'm already doing enough. My wife goes, you're doing enough. You don't need to be also running a wrestling promotion where then I've got to book people, and then it's people that might be coming down here where then they're like, well, can you put me on the show? And I go, I don't think you're particularly ready for this. Oh, so you hate me as a person now and I should just go die in a hole? Yeah. Well, I'm not saying that, but then that's the heat that, comes with it.
Yeah. Well, you guys have mentioned you've started some shows now, so you've done a couple of shows here.
But the reason we don't do more is because of what Liam just said. We've done a few because kind of the people wanted it.
Yeah.
But gotta say again,
I'll be honest, I think it's maybe there's some things in business that are just a necessary evil, and I think getting over those hurdles for you guys promoting it, if I suddenly heard about this show, there's this wrestling show around the corner from us, I'd be like, fucking, I want to go and see that. That's really cool.
So you said, but then it's then how do we let you know? Is it us them going out on the street and putting out flyers and posters and stuff like that.
It's probably all the above: social media, flyers,
and we do
campaigns online. You know, working with like certain marketing companies to go and do that. I mean, I can definitely put you in touch with people who could definitely like promote these shows really well.
To kind of pull the lid back, like if we're talking business, we make more money running PPW as a training facility and helping people go off and achieve dreams than we would ever make being a wrestling promotion.
They don't make money.
They don't make money, and that's because there's not the infrastructure that's sat there. There's not the eyes on the product that's sat there, which is what we're going a long way to helping with.
You have to pay 35 people per show minimum. Yep. It's not like, you're booking a tribute act. When I was doing the Butlins tour, outside of wrestling, anything over 4, people don't want to touch because that's too many chalets and too much expenses. Too many. In wrestling, a small show might have 20 people on. An average show is 30 when you've had the referees on. It just isn't viable. No one's been able to make it without a TV deal. Well,
do the wrestlers themselves not want to be like, I want to perform on a show? Like, it's part of the thing, isn't it? It's like, I've got a client who's a gymnastics coach, and their kids go to these shows, but they pay for them to go to the shows. The parents pay. They're not paid anything by the companies. They don't get no prize money.
And this is the weird line that we sit in: is it a hobby? Is it a job? There's people out there that try and make it a job, so then you want to get paid for the thing that you do because you're in front of a paying audience that are coming in. And we have a training show system that's we call them as in-house shows, which are a training session but dressed up like a show. So then they do pay to come and do those. But what they get out of that is footage that they can send to people to get out onto shows, to maybe put on the social medias, to have experience wrestling on shows and putting together matches.
Safe environment.
It's a safe environment. It doesn't go out anywhere if we don't want it to go out anywhere.
Your feedback.
Yeah, my feedback into it, Nathan's feedback into it, help from like people like Will that like agent the matches and stuff in front of friends and families and wrestlers. And that's a way that we allow people to live the life of a professional wrestler. But again, it comes to this point of there's shows that happen where people are paying tickets. So if people are paying tickets, then you are being paid to be a professional wrestler. So then it's this whole chasm of, and again, I've done plenty of stuff where I'm like, yeah, cool, I don't care. Me and Nathan do not give a fuck about money. Like, this does well enough that I can go and, I'm going to Germany this weekend. I know full well I'm making a loss on that show. It's fine.
I'm going to Italy this weekend and I'll make a loss as well. But he's on one of the biggest shows of the year.
Yeah.
I'm on one of the biggest Italian shows of the year. And that's the cool points, but it's
not for the money.
No, it's never for the money. And the only way that he does make the money is then when you get signed to the bigger companies that you would then make enough to make a full-time living off her.
But maybe it's like golf essentially. Like a lot of golfers don't make a lot of money in the early days. And when they hit the big time, it's like through the roof.
Music
but they've got to make a loss on some of the shows, on some of the tours, to then potentially put themselves in that position to make more money.
But going back to the other thing, it's just not, it's let somebody else promote. Yes. We're doing what we do down here. I don't want to. Also, promoting is a real skill.
Yes.
Me and Liam share, and Will and Axel, a lot of the guys that are down here, we all have a certain set of skills that we come together to make this place. One day, the promoter of that side of things might walk in the door and things might change. But as we stand, we've got a crazy Elvis impersonator that can teach music. We've got Gentleman Jim, who's got a giant mustache and beard who can put stuff up around here. We've got people that have got a certain set of skills. The promoter has not walked through the door yet. When they do, maybe we'll do some promoting. But it's just, you got to pick your battles, right? And it's just not one that we... And again, you become... So, as Liam said, we teach people down here, if you want to be on the in-house show, you pay and you can come do the show. When you're running a show, Liam then has to decide and go, you're good, and it becomes school who's getting picked for the team. Yep. And then you always get the people that aren't picked. And we don't want to be responsible for telling people that we think that they're not.
Yeah. You can grab a skateboard back in the day and you can go down to a skate park and nobody can say, well, you can't be here. You can go and do that. But to do your art form of professional wrestling, somebody has to say,
you'll be picked.
Yes, I will put you on the show. And that's a really hard line to sit into as a booker and as a wrestler. Yeah. Booker being the person that puts on a wrestling show.
I coach loads of parents. And they're always looking for things to do with their kids, always looking for it. And if you said to them, there's a pro wrestling show by a local Sheffield-based company, and they're doing it for like kids, and they're going to put a huge show on for kids. It's all their talent, all their big names. They'll put it on the ring. You probably people will probably pay £30-40 a ticket for parents and kids to come down here.
They do. There's a company called Megaslam that run in Barnsley, and they run the Metrodome and stuff like that. And
but you know, off the back of that, the kids would go, I want to do that. Oh, we've got a lesson on a Saturday morning. You can come down and just
we run juniors classes. But
it would definitely, I think, promote that in the local area and just get your name out there and just have the business.
It becomes time again. Like we do a show here, first pursuit there, second pursuit there. The amount of time that it takes is unbelievable. This show right here, this belt here is actually super important to me, Liam, PPW. This is, from what I know, pretty much the only kind of active charity pro wrestling championship, and that's the Children's Hospital charity, which are linked with Firehouse. And we did do a show here with Wes from Gladiators, and we had some of the Gladiators finalists down, and we did put on a show, and we did have our big names on, and we filled this place out, and the show is amazing. We're super proud of it. I would rather do stuff like that, which helps money go towards a charity, and helps kids and do all that kind of stuff, than that was much more fun and stress-free and more of a good purpose than when we did our main shows, which are cool, but this
for the boys, isn't it?
Yeah, it's for the boys. Yeah, it's for the boys, and this is actually. So I'd much more interested in doing stuff.
Yeah, that's really nice.
Like this.
Really nice.
Yeah, that's why that's front and centre there, because that's and it was tangent here, but it's really important to me. We're all that, this is a podcast of family men, right? And my daughter had a really, really tough birth, and so finding a way to give back was super important. And in hospitals, if you've got poorly dying kids, if you want to meet a rugby player, they know somebody. If they want to meet a footballer, they know somebody. Most people they know. Where I know there's kids sitting going, cool, John Cena is the most make-a-wish person in the world. We don't have a John Cena in this country. I want us to be, we want wrestlers, cool, well, we'll call PPW and we'll go down and out in full outfit and full costume with the belt and take pictures with the kids, and that's what's important, rather than putting on shows to make money for the boys and stuff like that. We do well enough here. I'd rather put time into kids like that and being able to give back in that way.
From the outside looking in from me, I feel like the big, I suppose, medal of success for you guys is collaboration, 100%. And that's why we said that's what we want to do. We want to essentially talk about Sheffield businesses, Sheffield companies who want to collaborate and do things. Is there a dream collaboration for you guys? Anyone?
Whoever helps the most people. That's we are doing cooler stuff that so tangent again, with the Bring Me the Horizon, which are the band from Sheffield, they found out about us and they came to some of the band members came to one of our in-house shows, and their company Drop Dead want to make some of the PPW merch, and that stuff's cool, and that's a dream collaboration. And this guy's a supermarket for all that good stuff there, and it's cool for us, and we got free clothing, but that isn't helping kids out. So I don't know why, hopefully we don't have to pick. Hopefully we can do all that cool stuff that makes us feel cool as wrestlers and keep going to Italy and Germany and all these places, and we'll go into Japan. But for me, if we could do anything, it would be being a part of they filled Wembley the last 2 years. Granted, maybe it was only 50,000 this time or whatever, but they still put 50 to 80,000 people in Wembley. There is a love for pro wrestling in England, and it's basically, we're kind of told that there isn't when there very clearly is. So if there's one kid that's dream is to be a part of what we, wrestling, and we can't get John Cena, we can at least get us down there and give them something. So that'd be the dream collaboration for me.
Or like they want to come down and be in a pro wrestling ring. Well, then that's the door that we have 24-hour access to this building. Yes, we can absolutely do that.
Yeah, I was like, how we can get people down here, let's bring them down, and we've not been able to do that. And again, it's because, and look, the charity, sorry to interrupt you, Liam, we're amazing to work with, but at the same time, it's a big company, and there was people in that charity that didn't get what we did. And some people, what happens in wrestling is people meet us, right, and they do one of two things. They either go, you're a wrestler, and they go, wow, I used to love wrestling, and Attitude Era and Jeff Hardy and John Cena, that's cool. Or they go, you all need to grow up. What are you talking about? And that's what kids do. Yeah, it's one or the other.
It's not, because as soon as we walked into this building, we just stood there and just took it all in for a minute, because we were like, this is my 10-year-old self's
If you didn't watch wrestling, and like, you know, my dad doesn't get it. Josh doesn't get it. He's like, what? You can see him trying. He's like, I have no idea what you're doing down here. And the problem is that I think within the charity, there's people that really got it, but then there's people that higher up were like, no, this isn't on brand.
Yeah, is this cage fighting?
Yeah.
Are they really hitting each other?
Fascinating that though, because like,
you know, we got stuck there. We could have helped more people.
every kid likes different stuff. Some stuff they like isn't like on brand. It's fascinating that a charity is on brand, isn't it? Like, you can't just make a kid's wish come true. It's got to be on the brand.
But I also get that, like, because there's no governing body, how do you know that these wrestlers haven't got, you know, we are police checked and DBS checked and all that kind of stuff, but we don't have to be. How scary is that? We run juniors classes and we have nothing to say that we are able to do that. That's crazy. You know, we wouldn't let... Imagine finding out there was a teacher in the school where our kids are that hadn't qualified or hadn't been checked. I mean...
And it's not through a lack of, like... It's not through, like, a lack of trying. Like, again, like, I've got, like, coaching qualifications and stuff like that. Like we were saying, DB, we're there, but there's nothing to say that you can't just, like...
No, that's just that. That's for us. So we can tell people.
Yeah.
But the worrying thing is we don't have to do that, and we should.
Yeah. Because, again,
I
you're
agree.
saying, like... It's weird that a charity has to be on brand, but they kind of do, because there's another world where they go, yeah, we can have like kids going down to a wrestling show and like the wrestlers come out and they're like, fuck you and your mom, man. It's like,
And they're not coaching how to deal with people, and that will happen. And then it's all undone, and it's charity's fault and all the rest of it. Yeah, it's true.
I'm just some of the clips.
I can see you being the receiving end of that before.
So we're trying to fix that.
there's one place like up more like northeast way where they were in like a working men's club. And
Yeah, this is the what I think now.
they were doing a death match and like we pulled out.
Do a death match is?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because
really like hardcore weapons like glass,
shoot bleeding.
Yeah, like
They used a grass strip.
Yeah, they got a grass trimmer out. They had it plugged into this is stupid. They had it plugged into an extension reel that came under, and then they were using it. And it's like
Kids in the
For the
audience.
5-year-olds, and it went, and
In a working men's club.
and that was in Newcastle, and that trickled all the way down. That we actually were trying at the time to run shows, and both of them got pulled because the council found out and they all talked to each other, and they were like, "Cool, wrestling Sheffield, let's have none of that." And back we go down
it
again.
was like the weekend after,
And it screwed us really badly. Early on,
it's amazing how like the
stigma with it.
press just swings so heavily either way, doesn't it, for wrestling? Like some weeks it's like the best thing ever. It's great for kids. They love it.
They
And then
were.
you have those
I
shows.
don't blame the press there, because it's not the press's fault, the council's fault. What they did that day ruined it for all of us because they were allowed to do that, and that, you know, you start to see why the governing body and why charities go, we can't take the risk. Whereas if they have an ambassador that's a footballer, there's all this red tape that's gone through, whereas we don't have it, and we were lucky to be able to help in the way that we did. And but there's so much. I can't believe actually that it happened. Can't believe that that's a real thing. That belt exists, and they were happy to have that
we
made.
had like a snowflake on the building.
Yeah,
right?
so we had the snowflake on the wall.
I mean, there's a reason the DBS like check is done, so that everyone who's an employer who wants to work with kids can have that as a thing. Why can't the charity just come to you and say, right, we love it, there's some hesitation, but can you just clarify you've got X, Y, and Z, and then we're going to go ahead? Rather than just writing it off, can we just clarify you're not going to plug a strimmer in and come out?
Do you know what it is?
Chop
Because
people's heads off.
that takes, when other places have already got that stuff done. Why bother with us when you've got footballers and all the rest of it? We can, if you don't have a passion for what we do. It's not, again, you're talking from a point of view of you used to watch wrestling. You've got a love and a passion for it. Some people hate what we do. They really do.
And part of that comes into because they've been fooled, because they've been told that it was real and it's not real, and then they feel dumb for doing that. So isn't wrestling really stupid, and I don't like any of it, and it's grotesque, and they're just beating each other up and hitting each other with chairs.
You're a UFC guy, right? It was only 8 years ago that New York allowed UFC into New York.
You're right.
You know how that sounds like it was 100 years ago, but it wasn't. It was 2016. That as late as that, there was New York City going nope, and all of it. You got Dana, everybody going, why? All this rationale, but you get one mayor that's like, no, and then that's the end of it. No, I don't like it.
I listen to Joe Rogan a lot, and I've never related more to what he says about UFC when I first got into it, because it was like, I thought it was like, oh my God, you've got all these different disciplines, all these different styles of training, and we're going to put them in a ring or an octagon, and we're going to see who's the best. I want to know, is it a boxer? Is it a kickboxer? Is it Muay Thai? Is it a grappler, wrestler? I want to know who's the best, which is the best discipline. For me, it's made total sense. But then, away from the scene, it was like, this is cage fighting. And you do see some of the faces afterwards, and you go, this is brutal. But that's just like the end product of any kind of combat, isn't it? You guys aren't as like, there's a certain type of theatrics and entertainment to it. How is that seen as right now as not being, as being more brutal than what you do?
Because you get end products, you get end levels of grotesqueness and stuff like that. That's the immediate thing that's seen out of it, and then you get horror stories into stuff that people then go to that first. They don't look at the 99%. They look at the 1% of stuff. Yeah. In the same way that there's a bunch of online coaches out there that do some really good stuff, and then there's a 1% that are like, I tell you what you should do a snake diet where you eat once in 24 hours and that's it. That's what we see.
Yeah. And I think the Netflix thing will help. I do think that'll bring tremendous credibility to us.
Do you think WWE is going to have to change some things to conform with what Netflix wants to see? Do you think there's going to be some legalities there? No. They're just going to go, you do you guys.
They're getting crazier with it.
Are they really?
Oh, yeah, we knew.
They're taking the shackles off, essentially.
Yeah, because it was all
I love that. That's good, though. Really good.
Oh, yeah, they don't have to stick to times. They're swearing now. They're in all... There's blood again. And I don't think they're going to go back to 1999 Attitude Era.
It was like blood every match.
But yeah, it was ABC and whatever channel they were on, Fox, was just strangling what they could do and their creativity and what words they could use.
But then an issue with that is that then kids coming up and through and into it are going, wow, pro wrestling's really, really cool. And then they've got parents that are being like, what? And then, hold on a second, he said, fuck you. I don't think so. Yeah. You're absolutely not watching that, which again is all an era that we kind of came up through a little bit later.
Allowed to watch Attitude.
Right.
Absolutely.
Not saying that's a good or a bad thing, but it's a change of things that is to come, whereas the PG era that went through like late noughties into early 10s is very, very clean as a product. Yeah. But hell yeah, they got some great sponsorships out of it and they made some fucking good money.
Incredibly boring though, wasn't it?
Yeah.
As a product.
I think there's going to be some big changes in the next 10 years because we're 35, right? We grew up, my daughter's 2.5, yours is 4. So we've got this kind of thing happening now where we were into wrestling. We watched it. We accepted it. And even if we weren't into it massively at our age, your friends were into it, you got it, you knew it wasn't like crazy. Give it another 5-10 years when our kids are like turning, 10, things like that, and they want to get into it and they're watching it. There's not going to be as much resistance from the parents, whereas I think a lot of the resistance now is from the parents.
I think it's a really good point. Liam makes a really, really good point. And again, this is a huge story in itself, but the boom period of 2017 and why, I'll let you do the footnotes of it, but effectively why it was and the people there, and now I think you are right, because I think that's the next 10 years on stage. Go on, Will.
Yeah, just briefly add before Liam goes, explains the 2017 bit, it's just a lot more accessible now as well. Like back in the day, like when we were kids, you could only really watch it if you had Sky, essentially. Well, WWE, that is.
Yeah, the Netflix
is crazy. If you didn't have Sky, I saw a thing, Triple H said now they've gone from being in like 18 to 20% of households worldwide to now the Netflix thing is like, it's now like 87%. Yeah, worldwide.
Wow.
That's the jump they've gone from.
Unreal.
Wow.
And there is, I think the next 5 years, like you were just saying, because of, again, Liam will explain better, like the trends of like, the 20-year thing, and I'll let you do your thing because I get confused on my words with it. But
so in 2015, 16, 17, British wrestling had a real big boom period. It really it got a lot of eyes into it, and the stuff that started happening, like WWE created a UK product because it was so big. And part of the reason for that is because people that were in and around our age who watched it growing up were at an age where they had disposable income. They're in the early to mid 20s. They don't have a house. They don't have a kid. They don't have a wife. They're able to go out on the weekend. So hell yeah, I'll go and watch that thing that I really loved growing up. And it's next door to me. And it looks really cool because everybody that's growing up around that time is also doing it, and they're like the cool and hip generation. Then damn right. So you got this real big buzz in and around it. That kind of ended as we were growing, and I think we were going to see it end anyway, but COVID came along and really dropped that down a little bit. But now we come into it where we're looking at pro wrestling being like, why is it not as hot as it was? Well, now we're in his 30s. We've got kids. We've got mortgages. We've got wives. We're not going out on the weekend, to go down to Tipton and sit on a coach for 3 hours to then watch the show for it to overrun, to then get stuck in Tipton, to then come back up again. Absolutely not. Like, my wife's going to kick off. Like, I'll be lucky if I get to go out, and I'd be lucky if I get to watch the video on demand. Never mind go to the shows. So
Spoken like a true dad.
Yeah, right.
But what I think will come is they will go on a Sunday afternoon at 2 o'clock, 10 minutes down the road, to much more palatable. It's a different style of wrestling, but I think that's why there's indie wrestling, which isn't really booming, I would say, at the minute, but there's the Mega Slam stuff. They'll fill 1,000 people on Barnsley on a Tuesday night, and that is what will come up, and hopefully will lead to, juniors and people coming through and all the rest of it. And it's a really interesting, like, pretty much what you said there.
Yeah. It just shows how much it's about knowing your audience, isn't it? And knowing where they are, the age ranges, where they are in their life cycle. And you're right, like, every kid I knew growing up was into wrestling. Maybe it's just the circles I was in, but this age range of 35 years old now is like a golden era for like the 90s and the late, early noughties.
I went to buy Vice City because Liam bought his PS2 down, and he told me that PS2 sells more than anything they've got, including current generation, PS5 and anything, because 20 years old. And now, if you couldn't have one, you're now 20 years on, and you can go back and all the games you couldn't play. And it's the same thing again, just in another, instead of wrestling, it's with another genre. And it just goes through cycles, right? And it tends to be about 20 years, which is, if you go back to, 2003, 4 and 5, like where Will started, you're going to see that coming back through again. And hopefully Netflix is going to help us, with that.
You guys are incredibly passionate, and I feel like we could definitely sit here all day and have a chat. I'm also super conscious of your time, because I know you're all very, very busy gents.
Who are you waiting on, Liam?
2 o'clock, isn't it?
2?
Yeah, it's 2 now.
Who are you waiting on, though?
Kieran, you won't know it. So this is a consistent when Nathan goes like, who are you waiting on? I say a name and he goes, and then I have to really
show me a picture.
I have to really break down this person they've been down.
Describe hair colour,
And he's like, I don't know who that is.
And when he walks through, he goes, "Oh, I know exactly who it is."
But it's real pointless, and it happens on a real consistent basis.
But he's not here now, right?
I don't think. I mean, he might be stood outside. Who knows?
Kieran.
But
No,
anyway, we would like to round that, and that's absolutely fine.
No, it's, I mean, we always treat these podcasts like a warm bath, basically. People come in, they enjoy themselves.
Everybody in together, right?
Everybody in together.
Yeah,
this is it.
hell yeah.
People essentially, there you go. There's the warm bath finished.
Yes, Kieran, pop on in. Hello.
And essentially right on cue. For us, I think it's a case of saying if people want to hear more about you, come pay you a visit potentially, follow more of what guys like Will, Nathan and Liam, you guys are doing, where can they find you?
Pursuit Pro Wrestling on pretty much all social medias.
Sheffield, not Alabama.
Yeah, Sheffield, not Alabama. Yeah. We're on TikTok, we're on Instagram, we've got a Facebook page running, we've got a YouTube that kicks in. I do a terrible job on X. But yeah, pretty much if you search us on social media, we'll come up, and it's usually him slamming someone around.
If you need it, just drop us an email. We'll get back to everybody. Drop us a message. Don't feel like contact us. Before we leave, can I flip the script on you guys? We ask everybody that comes down here 2 extremely important questions, and I think we'd be remiss if we didn't ask you, which is favourite wrestler. You might struggle with this one. Currently, a favourite wrestler of all time. I just think we got to know if you're coming down to PPW.
I don't go first. Go on. I don't mind.
I don't mind going all time. All time's always Triple H. I feel like me and Will share that passion.
Yeah.
I love the entrance music. I love the character. I just love everything he did. And currently, might get some hate for this, I really like what Logan Paul's doing.
Yeah,
Genuinely, it sounds really cliche, but I think he's a pure athlete.
That's what they want. They want casual wrestling fans to like or dislike. So
and he's just a raw athlete. Like
brings eyes to the sport. You can't hate that.
Absolutely, 100%.
All time for me is Jeff Hardy. I just love this. That was my favourite move off the sofa, standing on here as a kid, swan bomb. I loved him. I think that he was a grungy character as well, and I was into that.
Very relatable.
Yeah, I was into the skateboarding kind of scene, so I liked his kind of personality. Basically,
I think he's the most popular of all-time favourites we've had. That's the name we always I would say again.
Just the Hardy brothers as well. Like, they just work.
It's not
well
usually Matt.
Together.
Sorry, Matt. It's usually Jeff.
And then I'd say current probably. I like Cena mainly because he loves weights. He's a big weightlifter, big power lifter. I'm obviously into me kind of training, so I like that aspect of him. And he's a nice guy.
Well, you're going to enjoy the next. What is it? 9 months?
He said it's his retirement tour, isn't it? But he's just turned heel, so who knows what.
I tell you what, if you're a John Cena fan, right, you're like I said to you before, I was screaming at the TV. Like I'm not the absolute fan of me came out, grin ear to ear, couldn't believe it. So it's going to be a really interesting ride. Yeah, it really is.
The numbers turned heel, but actually he's probably more of a babyface now than he has been for the last couple of years, because people have been like, yes, you've done the thing that we wanted.
They cheered him.
Stupid.
When he was
Wrestling fans are stupid.
Yeah, they hated him. Either way,
I hate wrestling fans.
I'm excited.
Do you think it was less of a shock when Cena turned heel than when Hulk Hogan turned heel?
For me, it is the biggest thing since Hogan started the NWO. It is.
I get the sense that no one saw the Hogan thing coming. No one saw him turning heel.
I don't think anybody...
Whereas Cena, I think it sounds like people wanted that. They were like...
Back then they did. Yeah. They didn't want it now. We gave up on that 5 years ago. If they had that shot, will live forever. Like when Hogan pushes the ref and drops the leg drop on Macho Man and it's done. That shot over the shoulder will live forever. As like
100 million views in 12 hours.
Yeah.
Was it?
It did, yeah.
More.
Really?
Over, yeah.
Wow. Eclipse that.
I think it's like 114 or something like that. It is, and that
ridiculous.
Is when pro wrestling, wherever you are, it is the best.
Can't deny it.
You just can't get like...
I do like a good cravat, though. Bit of this and I'm all right. Maybe that's me.
What I love is, throughout this whole podcast, like, the passion in these three artists, like, is unbelievable. When you talk about wrestling, you talk about, like, the industry and the characters and everything. There's a look in your eye when you talk about it. It's just awesome. And the passion, you can't fake that.
Well, everyone has it when they're a kid, and it's like kicked out of people, like I said, and that's the bit that's a shame. You know, well, you go to school and someone goes, "You watched last night?" And they go, "Yeah," and find out that it's not real, and then boom, it's done. Whole group of people just cool it's just gone. It doesn't happen with anything else. So like, we can come down here and be as much of a marquee wrestling loser as you want. Read Triple H the comic book and come down and relive whatever year you want.
Just looking around here, like the characters, the old school games, it's a heaven. It's a paradise for wrestling. It really is. And if whatever age you're into, you've got to come and check this place out.
And it's great for all of our wives and partners that won't let us have them out anymore display, because that's basically what this place is built off. Everything here, I wasn't allowed to have up at home anymore, because, you know, you can't do that when you got wife and kids and stuff like that. So people just bring them all down here and we can live our little wrestling.
She wouldn't let you have them on the mantelpiece. That's a shame.
What's that?
She wouldn't let you have them on the mantelpiece.
I've legitimately, I have had many places where I've lived where wrestling belts and things have hung around, but now, absolutely, if it's not got Chanel on it, it's not going up on the side. Isn't that right, Gabs? There we are. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
There we go.
Want to wrap it up there? With that. Lads, honestly, awesome. Thank you so much for agreeing to this. And we've had a great time. Thank you for letting us come down and pick your brains. And yeah, awesome.
Do you want to cough again before we finish? Or we finish coughing now?
Mega. Guys, thank you for joining us on the Fit Dads podcast. We'll see you next one.
See you soon.